welcome to the Maybe Motherhood podcast. We are so happy to have you here. You are one of my favorite people. I feel like I have a select few people that I've met since I lived in New York. It's hard to make friends as an adult. So I feel like there's
It
like
sure
a there's
is.
there's like just a few people that is like I've really enjoyed their company, and you are definitely one of those people.
That's so heartwarming. Thank you.
Guys, I want to introduce you to Tasia Hawkins. As I said, she's one of my favorite people. I think there's so much to know about you. When we first met, we met in tech, and I immediately noticed that you stood out among the rest because you were one of the youngest people there, number one, one of the flyest people there, one of the most grounded people there. And I think that was really it was really
Thank
evident.
you
And
so
it's
much.
so I feel like for the first 6 months you were my manager. Like that's how flashy. And we're like years apart, y'all. Like I don't know how many years, but like at least a good seven. Like
I
we're
think we're exactly 7 years apart. I think.
like no, but it was really nice to see someone who reminded me of like myself at that age where like I was young, I was serious, I was ambitious, but I was still very focused on self in a very healthy way where I was never consumed by where I worked or what I did or what title I held. And I think that's important because people are really stuck on where they work and like what title they have, and they get so wrapped up in it that they really no longer can identify who they are without those things. And just watching you transition over the years, I know for sure like that is not what you identify with. Like you have your very
I
own
try.
identity.
I think it's been a journey, but I try to. So hasn't always
Yeah.
been easy to be that way.
No, it's not. It's learned and it's practice. So I'm going to tell you guys what I know about Tasia, what I love about Tasia, and then I'm going to let her tell you a little about herself. She's worked at some of your favorite tech companies in the social impact space, doing good in the world, and that's how we met. And it's been the trajectory that you've been on since then. She's a wellness advocate, a spin instructor now.
Yeah.
Okay. Out here, like physically getting people active in the world, which I too value as a part of being a community member and like getting out in the community and really helping people better themselves. She's also my favorite fun employment expert because the last 6 months of your life has been
It's been
like,
perfect.
it's been wonderful to watch. If you guys decide to follow Tasia on Instagram, it's always a new adventure and a lesson in those adventures. So that's what I love about her. But Tasia, feel free to tell people what you want them to know about you.
That was such a great intro filled with so many compliments. So thank you. You covered so much, but yeah, I've spent all of my career in the tech industry, which I have a lot of love for and a lot of other concerns about. But I really wanted a career where I was doing good in the world. And I think I really found that path for myself career wise.
Hmm.
In terms of at least like my corporate 9 to 5, but there's so many other things that are exciting to me that I love outside of that. Wellness is a big one of those. And so, yes, became a cycling instructor a couple of months ago. I'm also really excited to start hosting women's circles and retreats for women. So that's
Oh,
another big thing I've
wonderful.
been working on. What else about me? I do love to travel. Travel's been a big consistent thing
Hmm.
throughout my life. I just literally yesterday came back from 2 months in Mexico. So that's something that I love to do, which is also part of where the wellness retreats come from. So yeah, I do a little bit of everything.
Hmm.
And I'm really trying to live life in a balanced and really intentional way.
And that's what we're really here to talk about, right? I think when it comes to motherhood in proximity to our womanhood, we tend to not really connect the two. And it's like there's a ton to do before you become a mom, before you become a mother, before you even make a decision about if we want that. I think it's important to call out that like Tasia and I have had plenty of conversations about not being moms and about like possibly being okay with that. Like I think we both were in that space of like, take it or leave it. Like I have other things to do and to accomplish, and we'll see about that. We'll see about that later.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. I think I've always been someone that I've been like the idea of having a partner and kids sounds great. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that'll happen. And so let me focus on being completely happy with my life without that. And
Mm-hmm.
really focusing on like what will make my life feel full and exciting and great, whether or not I have kids. And I think more recently I've been like, oh no, I actually do really want kids. That's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily a new thing for me, but I think the confidence that I can have what I want in terms of the partner that I want, the family that I want, I think believing that I can have that has been different. And so now it's more of like I'm not just saying, oh, I'm going to make my life happy in case it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have that life that I really want. And I'm going to use this time really intentionally to like create the single season of my life
Yeah.
that I really, really want. Cause I do know that that'll happen someday. And I'm just going to enjoy my life until that happens.
Doesn't it feel good to be intentional about it though? Like the confidence that it takes to say, to admit to yourself, like, I've decided I want that. Like, I want these
Mm-hmm.
things. And you don't know if it's going to happen or not, and that's okay. Um, but the fact that you can admit it to yourself, like not anybody else, it's just like, I've decided this is what I want and this is what I'm going to do until that happens, I think was one of the breakthrough moments for me when it was like, oh, I've made a decision.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
I've made a decision. And that's one of the things that I love about you. Like I've watched you make a few decisions, and I know once you decide, like it's decided.
Yes.
Like,
That's one of the things that people call out about me a lot that I'm like, and it can sometimes that decision can be like irrational to some folks or whatever, it can seem irresponsible, but like I very thoroughly think through my decisions. And
yeah.
so when I know, and I listen to my intuition a lot, like that's been a big thing for me, like really developing self-trust where I'm like, if I know that something feels right, I know that it feels right, and that's what I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
move forward with. And it doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be because I asked for advice from 50 million
Mm-hmm.
people or have made like my full pros and cons list, although I do that too.
Mm-hmm.
I just know when something feels right and I can move with that.
And I think that level of self-assurance is so much peace there. And that's the thing that we hope to bring forth like with these episodes, right? We really want to encourage people to get brave and decisive. It takes courage in order to trust yourself and to make decisions, but that's what's required if you want to accomplish things in life, whether it's motherhood or anything else. That's what's required. So I want to talk about you making that decision. So from the moments that we had back at work in the cafeteria chatting about motherhood and how we had like other things to do outside of that, to you deciding that motherhood is an option for you and you getting very intentional about what that looks like while still embracing wholeheartedly your single life. What was that like? Like when did you realize that you might want to be a mom?
I think that's a great question. Um, so I think I knew from when I was younger that I wanted to have kids, or there was like that idea that I would like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I, especially in college in my earlier 20s, I was very focused on my career, on school, on doing all
Yeah.
of the things. So I was like, maybe that'll happen. I also was wrapped in this mindset of like dating sucks and there's no options. And so I was like, I don't know if I'll like meet someone that I want to have kids with. And so I think I was very much in that mindset and it just wasn't a priority for me to think about
Yeah.
or consider. I think when I turned 27, I'm 28 now.
Mm-hmm.
When I was around like turning 27, I was like, oh, one thing that I also have been very clear about is I don't, if I have kids, I don't want only one. I want more than
Mm.
one. I actually really want three.
I feel you. I
Um,
had the same number. I was like, it's one or it's like none or three. Like
exactly.
I was
Well,
like,
I'm so glad that you feel that way because I
I
think I sound
did.
a little bit crazy when I say that, but I have a younger sister, but we didn't live in the same like household growing up. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
very much raised as an only child, and I just don't want that. Like I don't want that
Yeah.
experience again. So I'm like, if I'm gonna have kids, I want to have three kids. Maybe two would be okay, but
Yeah.
not one. And so I kind of had a moment like when I was around 27 and I was like, oh, if I want multiple kids and like also haven't met my husband yet, and I like do
Mm-hmm.
that math of having all my kids by this like age of
Ideal
35
date.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
this like ideal age. I was like, oh, I should like be meeting someone right now. And I was like, wait, I don't like that. I don't like that timeline. I don't like the time pressure. That's not what I want for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was when I started to consider freezing my eggs, because I was like, okay, I know that it's either I want to have 3 kids or I want to have no kids, or like no kids might like is maybe the choice that's going to happen, but like I want to have choices.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and I, at the time, like my job would cover the egg freezing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to freeze my eggs so that I at least don't need to have the pressure to make this choice. So made that choice to freeze my eggs. And then I
Mm-hmm.
did it, I think I froze my eggs. It was probably about a year and a half after that. After I realized that I wanted to do it, that I actually did
Mm-hmm.
it. And I think it was really that process that made me be like, oh, I actually want to have kids. Cause I
It's
think
like
it was,
solidified.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was the first time that I one visualized myself pregnant, because I looked very pregnant while I was doing it.
Oh yeah.
So I think it was like, so there was that, there it was like that, and the like you do so many ultrasounds during egg freezing. It was the first time where I was like really sitting with myself and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I actually really want this. And like, I don't mind, like, I mean, I very much did mind, but I could like be okay with needing to inject myself with hormones every day and like do all of that, because I realized like, no, this is actually something that I really want. And I think at the
Good.
same time, I was really like changing my mindset around what was
Mm-hmm.
possible for me. I think I also used to have this mindset of like, I can't have everything that I want. And like, maybe so, like, just be okay with life working out however it works, which I still am.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I use that mentality to like to prevent myself from just like saying what I wanted, and
Gotcha.
being brave enough to believe that I could have what I wanted. And so I think that mentality shift of being able, like being brave enough to say, I want this thing, even though it seems
Mm-hmm.
difficult or out of my control, to like put it out in the universe that like I want to have kids. And I want to get married and those things. Because I think there's like so much messaging that's like, no, just be happy
Mm.
alone and whatever, which I am, but I can also
The
be happy alone and want those things. So it was that
yeah.
combo of like that, the mindset shift and the like physically going through a process that forced me to really like think and visualize about that.
I was gonna ask about that. Like you said, from the time that you thought about egg freezing to the time that you actually did it, it was like a year's time. And then going through that process, were there any like mental practices that you went through just like on your own? Like, was there solitude time or solo time? Did you include anybody else on the journey of freezing your eggs? Like, how did you handle that mentally?
I thought about it a lot. I'm someone, I do a lot of solo time regardless. I love being by myself, which is one of the things I'm like, do I like kids is no alone time. I don't
There's
know.
no alone time. Yeah, I'm telling you, there's no alone time. You
Yeah,
can
like
forget
you've
that.
learned this, so I'm curious to see how you dealt with this. But yeah, I definitely do like a lot of alone time. Um, one thing that I'm like trying to start doing is more like once a quarter, I want to go on like a 3 to 4 day nobody talk to me
Oh,
situation.
wow. No,
Um,
that's good though. I'm not that person, but I probably need that. I probably need
I
that.
I feel like a lot of people need that.
Yes.
So,
It wasn't until having kids that I wanted to be alone, honestly.
mm,
Before then, I always enjoyed the company of other people, and I think that's probably like deeply rooted in some other stuff. But yeah, when children, it's like, can I just have this weekend
yeah,
by myself?
learn those things about yourself. I think like that's a thing too. Like even the way that you engage with people and community in your life like changes so much when you have a kid.
Hmm.
And so that's like the kind of stuff that I think about now. I'm like, I am naturally like I love being alone. So that's something that I know will change, and like what are the habits
Yeah,
I want to
it
have
will.
now to like create that. But yeah, my mom is my mom is has done so much. I'm like, I don't know how I want to even describe her right now. But like she's one of the people that came along with me on this process.
Oh, y'all are so precious. Like the quality time you spend together is beautiful.
Thank you. Yes, I spend a lot of time with my mom. But my mom is a functional medicine practitioner, and she did childbirth education and breastfeeding. Like I was a lactation consultant for a long time, and like is
Mm-hmm.
so just thoroughly knowledgeable about everything in relation to like being a woman and women's health and
Yeah.
having babies and all of that. And I think when I first told her that I was thinking about freezing my eggs, she was like, why? Like, you're so young. Like, she was like, you should just find someone and get married and not freeze your
Just they're just outside on 125th.
eggs.
Like go find somebody.
Yeah, like it doesn't really work like that. She was really supportive throughout the process. And yeah, I think I talked to a lot of friends about it too, because there's so many people who are considering doing it or have done
Mm-hmm.
it. People don't necessarily talk about it. So it was
Yeah.
really important for me to like share the story of like what I experienced through it, because I felt like when I was thinking about it, I knew a couple of people who'd done it, but it was hard to get personal perspectives about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I considered it for a long time, and I feel like I was considering it around the same age, like 28. Um, and I didn't know anyone who had done it. I didn't know anyone who had done it, but I think having access to it, right? First of all, having access to insurance that would cover it definitely makes it more of a real thing. And I think I just overall decided like the same math, right? Like if I want X amount of kids or if I want to explore this, like do I want to be 40 having babies? And it's like I don't really know. I was already married though, so it made the decision to go ahead and do it a little easier.
Mhm.
And I just chose that route over the egg freezing. But what was the overall process like for you? Was it painful? Was it scary? Like, were people helpful along the way as you went through it, answering your questions, being that you didn't have that personal perspective?
Yeah. It was a lot. It was very overwhelming, I will say. And I
Mm,
think I did it last year. It was a year ago, and I actually had to delay my cycle like twice for like different timing reasons.
mm-hmm,
And it felt like so much of my year was kind of wrapped around this decision, even though it's the cycle itself takes like 15 days, but
mm-hmm.
it just felt like mentally a lot. Like it
Yeah.
was probably like it was definitely one of the biggest things I've done in my life, at least like emotionally, physically.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sounds like pregnancy.
yeah, I mean, it is like a small thing compared to pregnancy.
No, I'm serious. Like it sounds like just how it kind of dictates how you spend your time and
Mhm.
it just sounds like a glimpse into pregnancy, having to sort of think about it on a regular basis.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I going into it, I don't know if I was just overly like, I want to make sure that I'm like healthy and eating right and like doing all of those things leading up
Mm-hmm.
to it. So I was like, oh my God, these eggs that are harvested be my future children. Like I should make sure that they're good ones.
Yeah. What did you do
Uh,
to prep?
what I was just trying to be happy. I was also in Mexico last winter, before I did it. But I was trying to eat better. I was on different vitamins.
Mm-hmm.
I was like exercising, like the general things that they recommend to be a healthy human being. I
Yeah.
was be more intentional about. I read like books. I read one book, not books. I did read this one book while I was going through it,
Mm-hmm.
called Essential Labor. It's called Essential Labor: Mothering as Social Change. And it was
Mm-hmm.
really helpful also for me to like give me perspective about motherhood. Because I was just like, I'm just like gonna be in this mindset, in this zone right
Yeah.
feel into it. Um, so yeah, the process, I went in for my initial consultation. And for me, everything, I was like perfectly healthy. And so I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
any complications with my process. It was pretty simple. Like my hormones were level. Everything was like normal,
Mm-hmm.
or typical. I don't necessarily like to use the word normal when it comes to like medical stuff, but um no red flags. And so
Yeah.
I ended up starting the process. Again, I had like a couple of delays, but started the process like maybe 2 or 3 months after my initial consultation. I was able to choose. I loved the facility that I went to. That part I got from, I think people recommended it to me, the people
Mm-hmm.
I knew who had done it. And so I picked my facility and my doctor. Um, And from there, like once the cycle actually started, I think that's when it started to become a lot. Um,
Yeah.
it was it's injection hormone injections twice a
Yeah.
day. I for me, I also I think partially because of my age, but like fertility or whatever, had a lot of eggs developing, or like I think it's the egg like sacs, the follicles that
Yeah.
the follicles that develop and enlarge, and then like they give you the this is not scientific. I could like
It's
please
okay. No, it's okay. We're gonna just explain it in layman's terms.
please do not take this as the actual scientific process or correct process, because I could be like saying things completely wrong. But the hormones are stimulating the follicle size.
Hmm.
And then when they give you that like whatever stimulant, the final shot is when like the eggs actually release.
Okay.
But when I was going through it, I had a lot of follicles that were growing. So it was like I don't remember exactly how large I get. I think it's like a couple of centimeters each.
Hmm.
So just like the volume of it, like I legitimately looked pregnant by around like day
Oh
five
wow.
or six of the I think
Oh,
it's only
it happens that fast.
yeah. So I could see the development over time. But yeah, it's a visual change. Because like your ovaries, I think your ovaries are growing because of these like little follicle sacs getting bigger.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was wild. And then you start to like the emotions, for me at least, like I did have emotional side effects. I know not everyone does, but
Hmm.
it was an emotional wreck
Oh
certain days
wow.
of the cycle. You definitely get like a lot of crampy, or like I got a lot of like cramping and bloatiness and just like
Hmm.
not feeling great. Um, so yeah, it was not the most pleasant experience. But yeah, I think my cycle was 11 or 12 days, and then I did my retrieval. I ended up getting 20 eggs. So I
Oh
think
wow.
yeah, I think or actually they retrieved 28 eggs, which is a
Hmm.
lot for an egg freezing cycle, which is part of also why I had heavier symptoms and like looked more pregnant than I think a lot of people typically do
Yeah.
in their cycles. But yeah, 28 retrieved, and then 20 eggs that were like viable eggs out of the 28, which is supposedly enough for like 3 pregnancies,
Okay.
based on the age I was when they were retrieved. So it was a
Wow.
while. It felt really worth it.
Yeah, that's good. I was gonna ask you, how did you feel after it was over?
I, it was like the most relieved I've ever felt.
Yeah.
And it did actually feel like the recovery felt not great.
Hmm.
I think also they say like the more that you retrieve, the harder your recovery can also be. And
Okay.
so I did have like a lot of cramping and pain after, but for me it was like, oh, I don't have to think about this anymore.
Yeah.
Like I just gained so much time and freedom because I have a lot of eggs on ice. like I
Yeah.
yeah, like I can have kids at whatever age I feel like. If I decide to have like a natural pregnancy, I could get a surrogate. Like I could do like I have so many options, and I feel like I've done that like initial outlay of work for myself.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's like a weight that's been lifted.
That's exciting. I feel like, and that's a relief because I know like the age thing is definitely something that pressures a lot of women. But then on the other hand, it's like talking about egg freezing is becoming more of a topic, as it should be, because it is an option. Can you talk more about like how you were able to pay for it, like insurance wise, and like the storage fees that accompany egg freezing?
Yes, of course. So egg freezing is expensive. And that's, I think, why so many people aren't doing it or
Yeah.
talking about it. So I've also been so excited to see more Black women like publicly talk about their egg freezing process and how they did it, because there's not enough of us who are doing it. So
Mm-mm.
like I mentioned, work paid for it for me. And so that's why it was such an easy decision for me to make. Um,
Mm-hmm.
from what I understand, egg freezing in the US at least costs somewhere around 15 to $16,000 typically.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that, or I think for me, I think 10 or 11K of that was the actual process itself, and the rest of it was the meds. So like,
Mm.
and that's also why it costs less in like Europe, for example, because the
Yeah.
healthcare system, but that's another story. So yeah, I had to pay for it though up front. So that's another thing that people like don't necessarily know. I
Hmm.
even though work covered it for me, I had to pay for it up front and then get reimbursed. So that's how I
Oh, okay.
did it. Um, so just like make sure that you have like savings or a credit card or whatever to like pay for it before you get reimbursed. Um, there's also like really cool startups, or at least one that I know of that's like you can get either a free or a discounted egg freezing cycle if you donate
Oh,
some of your eggs, which is like an interesting thing and like choice to really consider. But it's exciting to see more options pop up for those who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it. So there's that to consider. Also, like think about what companies you go to. Like maybe it is worth it to find a job that will pay for it.
yeah.
It does.
That's true. Thinking about like the places that you're applying and the benefits they offer and asking those
Yeah.
questions up front as you're interviewing and asking, getting very specific in that interview process, which I always encourage women to do. But yeah, that is a unique option to freeze some and donate some. I had a conversation with another woman who actually was looking for a male donor to have a child by herself. And she was talking about how just there's not a lot of Black donors, male or female, out there. So definitely interesting because of the history that we have as Black people in this country with just medicine in general, but also it's like we are in need of these facilities and these donors as well.
Yeah.
Um, so, what happens years from now? Let's say you decide to use your eggs, but let's say you don't use them all. Can you talk a little bit about the options for the eggs you don't use?
Yes. From what I understand, I can donate them or they get rid of them. I think those are basically the two options.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I could donate anonymously or
Mm-hmm.
to someone that I know. My guess is that I won't use all of my eggs. I won't. But I haven't really thought that far. So I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that I have the option to donate them if I don't end up using them. And then one of your other questions that I didn't answer, storage fees. So it's $1,000 a year for storage. And so the initial amount that I paid, I think, covers the first year of storage. And then every year
Mm-hmm.
after that is like $1,000 flat fee that's due once a year until I no longer need them. So at some point I will, I guess, figure out what to do with them or just continue
Yeah.
storage fees until I don't know, am ready to donate them or just let them go.
Yeah, that's not a horrible storage fee. I was expecting it to be a little higher, and I'm sure it varies per place, but $1,000 over the course of a year could be savable, incrementally. It seems worth it to think about that. But it's good to think about these costs up front, to think about these costs, like how you spent that year sort of in consideration phase. It's like even while you haven't decided, I would encourage people to start saving. Like just start saving so that if you decide you do want to do it, the money is there. And if you don't want to do it, treat yourself to something else. Like,
Treat yourself to a nice trip, do something nice.
yeah, like
Either way,
invest it. But I think the key thing is, especially for us, is like to make sure that we have the access to things we need the funds to be accessible. So how you save and where you save is always really, really important. So you did that. You decided that, okay, I'm brave and decisive. I'm going to be a mom. I'm going to save these. I'm going to get these eggs out. I'm going to save these eggs. You did that. And then now what's next? You mentioned something really, really fun about your bucket list. Tell me about this like premarital, pre-motherhood bucket list that you have.
yeah. And I didn't necessarily set out to be like, here's all the things I want to do before I get married or before I have a kid. But I
Mm-hmm.
think from when I was a lot younger, I was very intentional about like, I want to make sure that I do certain things while I'm young and have the freedom and lack of responsibility. Um, and so there, for example, like I had decided that I really wanted to go to 25 countries by my 25th birthday. And so that was like my big goal that I hit. Like I think right before my 25th birthday. But that was the thing where I was like, I'm never gonna have as much freedom to
Yeah.
travel as I do in my early 20s or when I was in college. And so that was a big goal for me. And now I got to a point where I realized actually, this was just a couple months ago that I rewrote like a new bucket list because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I there's still so many things that I want to do and I want to feel
Mm-hmm.
excited about life and like all of the freedom that I still have. And so I wrote this list of like 100 things, which
A
felt really
hundred.
a
A
hundred. So
hundred.
yes, I read this book that I highly, highly recommend. It has a weird title. It's called A Happy Pocket Full of Money. And it's all about abundance and how you can think about like how you just claim the things that you want in life. And like the more that you actually say that you want out of life, the more you can get out of life. And
Yeah.
it talks about creating like a really, really long list of things that you want in life or things that you want to do in life. Because then you have something to look forward to and to aspire to.
Yeah.
And I think I also needed to shift my mindset into thinking about the things that I wanted that I could control. Cause like
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea when I will have a family.
Yeah.
But I have all of the lists, like a list of places I want to travel to and things that I want to do. Like I want to become a yoga teacher. So there's all these things that I was like, I have no control over the timeline of like
Yeah.
marriage and family. I have no idea when that's going to happen. I like have the idea that I want that and like that can be on the side for like whenever that happens. And I can like date and do things to be intentional towards that, but also
Yeah.
like be very intentional about the things that are in my control. So a lot of that was around like what experiences I want to have, places I want to go, things that I want to do career wise that I don't have to rely on another person for, and that I have like
Girl, say it
freedom for.
again. I don't have to rely on another human. It is not based in someone else's like availability or willingness to accompany you. Like you can
Yeah.
create the life that you actually want. Talk about some of the things that you've done on this list because I feel like I know some of them because I've been watching and it's like I'm like check, check, like she's
My life is like checking off all of the things I want.
which like
Um,
is also it can also be I want to just call out like checking boxes is not what we're talking about, right? Like we're not saying just checking things off for the sake of doing them when it's rooted in this like unhealthy obsession with like accomplishment or accolades, which I have had for a very long time. And I had to get out of that mindset. If I get bored, I achieve. If I'm upset, I'll achieve. If I, like it just gets to a point where it's like really unhealthy. We're talking about like creating a list of things you really, really want, and then making sure that you're honoring yourself and you're honoring what you want by actually holding yourself accountable and doing those things. So, what are some of the things you've done so far?
yeah, it's so true the way that you said that. And I think that was such a mindset shift that I had to make too. Like it wasn't about achieving. Like I genuinely just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be peaceful and happy
Yeah.
and radiant. And like that was the stuff that that's the way that I prioritize things now. And I think for me, I was also lucky in that I felt like I reached a point in my career, like really early on, where I was like, I feel like I don't need to strive. I realized that I didn't need to climb the corporate ladder and that wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
priority to me. And I was able to realize that very young because of the work situations that I had. And so that really helped me to shift my mindset to not be like, what do I need to strive towards next? Like, how can I just be
Mm-hmm.
at peace and happy and have that be my North Star instead of like achievement in the
Yeah.
traditional, like capitalistic way. So,
Which takes some time to let go of, right? To decide,
yeah,
like, no, I'm not going to join the C suite because it's really not for me,
yeah.
versus like, this is where I'm supposed to be because everyone says I am supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
so tell the people what you did when you made
So
that decision.
yes. Okay. So I the one of the big things that I'm like just wrapping up now is I really wanted to take 6 months off of working. Like I wanted to just do what I wanted for 6 months straight.
Hmm.
I never really took breaks. Like I had been working since I was 14, every summer, like every break. I just never gave myself like
Yeah.
any grace to like not be working and being productive.
Yeah.
So just like to take 6 months where I was like, I am going to wake up at whatever time I want to wake up. I'm going to do exactly what feels like it's calling to me each day, like really has been magical. And in that
Hmm.
time, I really wanted to dance. So I did a work study at this dance studio. I wanted to become a cycling instructor for a long time. And so I like did training and became a cycling instructor. And those were things that were really fun. And it was also a
Yeah.
time where I realized it was my first time where like things weren't so based on my intellect and like this mental brain capacity and having to think and exist in a certain way. I was
Yeah.
like really community focused environments that were so different than the environments that I'd been in. And so that was like such an eye-opening experience to me in terms of how my life could be and how my time
Yeah.
could be. So that was amazing. And then I went to Mexico for 2 months. It honestly felt like an adult study abroad trip that I just like designed on my own. I went to Playa del Carmen and then Mexico City for a month, or a month each. So that
Yeah.
was amazing. I got to skip some of the winter in New York City. And yeah, like getting to travel, getting to do things with my time that I wouldn't otherwise have the time to do has been really, really good. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading a lot, like everything that I did not have the capacity for before. I've just like
Mm-hmm.
myself to use my time for that.
And how did you plan for that? Because I know there's some people out there who are like, she did what? Like I don't have the space to take off 6 months from work. And it's like, maybe people don't, but maybe you can take 6 weeks. I think it's all about how you plan for it. So what are some of the things you did to be able to have that option?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think figure out what works for you and what you really
Mm-hmm.
want. And so for me taking time off was actually about like, how do I create space for myself? Like, how do I
Mm-hmm.
create space to do what I want with my time, to learn more about who I am and what I like to do when there isn't external pressure? And I really wanted to practice just being because
Mm-hmm.
I think there's so much pressure to like do all of the time. And so
Yeah.
I kind of I realized for me, like I really wanted to prioritize having that kind of extended break, but that might not be the right thing for anyone anyway. So like don't
Yeah.
think that your answer is like I need to take however long off. Like think about what's really restorative for you and create that in your life. Like for some people it could be like I really just want to have space to like explore a new hobby and you can carve
Mm-hmm.
out that time. Or it's like maybe you don't need a 6 month break, maybe it's like you want to just be by yourself for
Yeah, it could be a weekend.
yeah,
It could just be like whatever it is, whatever's feasible
yeah,
for
whatever you
you
see.
and your lifestyle. But it's like planning for it, saving for it, for clarity though, Tasia like bounced, right? Like you she
I
she decided to shift in her career and trajectory. So that was a bigger decision. But it could be as small as you like it. But you'd also been like saving for a long time, right? Because you had been so focused and so career driven, and it's just you had the ability to like save for a while too.
Yeah, and that was a thing for me. Like I was in a career where I was able to save a lot of money. I also was in a place where like I don't have that many financial responsibilities. I mean I did just buy an apartment. So that was one thing. Like I have a mortgage. Um, but I outside of that, like I don't have student loan payments. I really thought about what expenses I needed to reduce. But I don't say that to like, yes, I had privilege in that and being able to like save a lot, but you also don't need that. Like I made
Mm-hmm.
the decision that like this is what was important to me and figure
Mm-hmm.
out how to make it work. And again, like
Yeah.
for me, I was able to make that 6 months happen and like feel good about that. But there's also like other ways to get that kind
For
of
sure.
separation that you want.
Yeah, and to just to share with y'all from a different perspective, like as someone who is married, who does have a child, and still took like a sabbatical, like at some point, like it is possible. Last summer, my family and I went abroad for just 2 weeks, and it was just us, and we lived in Mexico, for those 2 weeks. And I did that with my child, with my toddler, with my husband, and it was like the best thing ever to just get away. And it was a very conscious decision, and it was a decision that I started probably planning for in like the December before that, that this is what's going to happen, and saving for that moment and figuring out what we wanted to do while we were there. We stayed in like 3 different cities. So just to show you on a different scale, it's like, because I know some of y'all are going to be like, oh well, she's single, oh she did, and it's like that's not it, right? It's really about your intentionality and creating space for what you want in your life. And it may not happen in 6 months. It may take you a year to get there to plan for it, but it's deciding that this is happening.
Yeah.
This
A lot
is
of it
happening.
making the decision and claiming it so that you can confidently take the steps to get there. Because that's the thing,
Yeah.
you just have the mindset like this is never going to happen for me, then you can't actually make the progress towards making it happen because you already
No.
believe that it's not going to happen.
You have to identify the steps. You have to outline the steps. And I truly believe in writing it down. Like you have to write it down and you have to know what's needed to get you there. What does it cost? What's transportation? I mean, down to like the nitty gritty of whatever it is, you have to write it all down so that you can execute on it.
Yeah.
So we talked about career and like your fun employment phase. Um, do you have any career or like financial tips for women who are thinking about like where to start
That's
in
a
that planning? Like
yeah. Where to start in terms of planning for motherhood career wise?
where to start in terms of living your life to the fullest while you wait for motherhood or partnership or whatever. Like if someone wants to create this bucket list or just maximize, their single life, what should they be thinking about like career wise?
Yeah, I think for me, I've thought a lot about one, maximizing income so that I could live the life that I wanted. I think for me, career wise, I for a while, like in college and when I was younger, thought that I was gonna work in nonprofits or like be a journalist or something. And I realized like I wanted to be able to have a level of financial security for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was really important to create that regardless of what else happens in my life, like having my
Yeah.
own established career, financial like, piggy bank where I felt really secure. So that's like my number one thing, like figure out the type of career that you want to have, the skills that you want to have that you can fall back
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that you have that for yourself. And I think for me, like I have like a level of pride in the career that I've been able to build. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm on a trajectory that I can see myself being in for a long time. And I think that gives me a level of stability in terms of my life and my career because I'm not like I think even if I had kids next year, I
Mm-hmm.
know what kind of career I want to go back to. I know what I want to be in, at least right now. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
10 years. Like I kind of want to be like a professor, like a college professor. I
I
do
can see
that,
that.
you know? But I feel really clear and in a stable place career wise and confident where I
Yeah.
feel in that way and confident in my ability to provide for myself. And I feel really good about having that for myself before going into a serious relationship or a marriage or kids. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think now I'm like, I kind of want to be a stay-at-home mom. And I
Mm.
feel like I can feel confident in that decision because I know that I have enough money saved that I don't have to be stressed about that choice. I think before I was like, I can't rely on anybody for money. Like I had all of these like can'ts about like why I needed
Yeah.
to like be a financial provider for myself. But I've become my own financial provider and I feel like I don't have to worry about that. Um, going into a marriage or going into having kids. And I feel like I have a lot more flexibility in what I want to do and be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like my biggest thing. And
Yeah.
then just being really intentional about what you want and allowing it to change. Like
Yeah.
I think there's been so many things that I've like explored and then decided like actually that's not for me. I want to do this now. And having the ability to like figure out what I want and like reiterate on that over and over again and like go for the
Yeah.
things I really wanted to do, those things have been really important for me. And so like really thinking about what you want your life to look like and going after those things I think is so important.
And the ability to change your mind, like you said, you tried things and you may not like it. You thought you would, but then you don't. And it's like you have the right to change your mind. You don't have to, you're not like, and nothing's concrete. And that's the thing, is like nothing in this life is concrete. Well, a few things, but for the most part, most things are not concrete. So having the ability to change your mind. And you talked about being really, really intentional. I think intentionality is like the theme throughout this entire episode is like living your life with intention. Do you share this like when you are dating? Do you share how intentional you are about your life? And if so, like how do people respond?
I think that I do. I think it depends on the person, right? Like I think what intentionality and clarity has given me is the ability to meet people and be
Mm-hmm.
very upfront about like what I'm looking for and what works for me and what doesn't work
Mm-hmm.
for me. And to be able to assess in other people if we're in the same place. And I think I've also like I have the level of reassurance of myself now that I can say like actually no thank you, like what you have to offer does not work for me.
Yeah.
And I think being able to balance that, like that level of intentionality with also the like craziness that is dating, is also important. And like knowing like the majority of people out in the world will not be the right fit for me. And like,
Yeah.
okay. But I think like I've become more intentional about how I meet people, who I actually go out with, so that like if I'm meeting
Okay.
someone, I try, you know, like oh, just
What are
out here.
Tasia's dating tips? How do we get more intentional about meeting people that are aligned with what we actually want? What do you do? Where do you go? Because people don't meet in person anymore. I don't know where they meet. It's been so long since I've been in the streets. What's the what's the plan?
For you because the streets are not right right now. I don't know. I actually I think I will say though, I had to change my mindset about what was available. And like because I think so many women right now, understandably so, we're like,
Hmm.
dating is awful. The dating pool has piss in it. Like we're all saying these things. And I, like a couple of years ago, I started to be like, you know what? There are an abundance of incredible men who would just love the opportunity to love me.
Hmm.
And I'm going to focus my attention on those great men in the world. And that's how I'm going to have my mindset when I date. And so I think thinking that way has helped a lot.
Yeah.
Getting frustrated. I am not on any of the dating apps. I
Okay.
yeah. I'm I'm also like a little bit burnt out by dating right now, part of it, but I found that meeting people in person is just so much better. Um,
Hmm.
my theories are like one, when people are on apps, it's just like it's a more casual interaction. There's less
Hmm.
effort. It's just not, it doesn't give me the quality of experience that I really
Yeah, that you want.
because it's like typically when you're on an app, you're going on dates with multiple people. Like it's just low effort. Like everyone is going
Hmm.
for low effort, low energy. Versus when I meet people in person, I'm usually meeting them in a space
Hmm.
that I'm already interested in. So we're like starting from a basis of common interest. I can
Yeah.
very quickly like have a conversation with them and decide if I'm actually interested or not. Versus I think it's really hard to figure that out in a text conversation.
Yeah.
A lot of times if I do meet someone on an app, I like, or in the past, like I would try to have a phone conversation or like a FaceTime with
Yeah.
them because I'm really protective of my energy and I just like don't want to spend it with like people that are not in alignment with
That
me.
are not it, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm definitely not out here dating, but I just feel like in general, whether it's romantic or platonic, it's just like you want to be around people that it feels like a good use of your energy.
Yeah. And I think it's really great advice also to like have those first dates, especially be like a light, like let's go for a coffee or do whatever. But my thing was like even that feels like a lot. Like I if like I could be somewhere else. I could
Yeah.
like it's still like wrapping my day around meeting people. And so I love when I can like go out with my friends to an event and like meet someone there, like somewhere that I was already going to be. Um,
Hmm.
although like I do think like having the midday coffee dates like that works too. But like it's really figuring out what works for you and like getting clear about what you want, being able to communicate that, like making sure that people are on the same page before you invest in the time going out with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that was for me. Like I care most about my energy and my time. I'm not like just going out on dates just for like entertainment and free dinners. Like, although that's fun,
Yeah.
I would rather do that with my friends. And so that's been my thing. Like, how do I meet people in person? How do I intentionally like look at people's dating profiles? If that's what I'm doing, it's like figure out if they're actually a good match.
Perfect. I feel like the thing is that you actually go out though. Like you get out, you're
I
out
do.
and about doing things that you have an interest in, and therefore you put yourself in spaces with people who have common interests. Yeah,
That
just
part is key. You're not going to meet anyone sitting inside your house. Like, I will say part of the key to that strategy is to be outside. Like, I go outside often.
yeah, yeah. Well, Tasia, that's wonderful. I feel like this was such a good episode. I was really excited to talk to you because I feel like when people think about motherhood, they do not think about being someone who may not be partnered or who is single. And it really does start with you. And I think this is why the episode about like embracing your single life is one of the most important episodes for me because it starts with you and what you want. And I understand that like parenting takes two people. Got it. But at the end of the day, being a woman is very special, carrying a child is very special, or adopting a child, or however you are, journeying into motherhood, it is a unique experience, I believe, when you are a woman. And I think that the most important thing about that journey is knowing yourself. And so often we're not focused enough on knowing ourselves. I think those moments of solitude, as someone who didn't really enjoy being alone when I was younger, I too was like, my siblings had such a large gap that I felt like an only child growing up. So I was always around, friends and doing things with other people. And when I got into the phase of making this decision about my life, I got really quiet because it's a solo decision. It's a solo decision, and you have to put the people and the resources and the things in place that you need in order to do that. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your adventure.
Thank
Um,
you. Yes, thank you for having me here. And it's so real. And like also the things that you put into becoming the best version of you make you a better mother later
they
on
do.
and like allow you to pick the best partner for like the deep knowing of who you are and what you need in that partnership
Yeah,
and that like that family that you want to create too. So it's like all that time is such a good investment in creating the life that you want. And it's not like just a pausing and waiting. It's a like I can so confidently like know
yeah,
what I want in motherhood and in partnership because I've spent so much time working on myself in my singlehood season.
exactly. You get it. You get it. And it takes some of us, several years to do that. But yeah, because the worst thing for me was thinking like I'm gonna have a kid and like the idea of people utilizing children as a way to fix things in their life or to provide something that they were missing. And it's like all that work can be done, or most of that work can be done beforehand, and this child and you can just be. And that is, I think, a much better experience than leaning on that child for a different kind of support. So I
Yes.
hope that you all enjoyed the episode with Tasia. Tasia, let people know where to find you, what's next, what do you want them to do? Are they meeting you in Harlem to cycle? Like, where do you
Yes.
need them? Where do you need them to go?
Yes, you can follow me on Instagram at tasia.ebony, like Tasia. And I'm going to be hosting women's retreats, which I'm going to be opening soon, and circles
Yes.
in New York City. So be on the lookout for that. You can absolutely come take a cycling class with me. I would love that. All the info for that I typically post on my Instagram. So follow me there to stay updated. And thank you. Like, thank you for
Cool.
having me. I love this conversation.
Yes, it was so helpful. And y'all, I will add all that in the show notes and also the books that Tasia shared. I'll list those too in case you want to dive into that and any of the egg freezing resources that she can share. I will happily list those too. So this is Maybe Motherhood. Talk to you guys soon.